Well, we're back into the political season, and therefore we will be subjected to all kinds of distraction and attacks, and I'm ready for that. I know that that comes, unfortunately, with the territory. It is, I think, worth noting that the Republicans seem to be talking only about me. I don't know what they'd talk about if I weren't in the race. But I am in the race, and hopefully we'll get onto the issues, and I look forward to that.
And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. If you're just joining, I'm Rick Unger, and I'm filling in for Steve today. Right now, we're joined by a former aide to Senator Lloyd Bentsen, currently a writer for The Hill. Of course, I'm talking about Brent Budowsky. Brent, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to be here.
So, Brent, you are not showing us your e-cigar, and I'm very disappointed. Brent and I, there he is. That's what I want to see. Brent and I share the joys of being vapors, and I love that he had that cigar. Now let's talk about your piece, which I also loved. You have a piece running right now over in The Hill where you make the case that Hillary's first week served to lift populist spirits. What do you mean by that, Brent?
Well, when she supported, called for, and proposed reversing the Citizens United decision, liberals and populists on the left were delighted, including myself. That is, in my view, and in liberal view, one of the worst decisions in American legal history since the Dred Scott decision over slavery, because it gave the rich the right and power to buy elections. Right. It is a horrendous decision, in my opinion. And the fact that Hillary Clinton came out and called for its reversal and said she was willing to fight for a constitutional amendment, if necessary, to reverse it, really did thrill the liberals. Now, when I first wrote that column, and it was published last Thursday, I was ahead of the crowd, but I think now most people agree that she definitely has strengthened her position among Democratic liberals, and I would add a majority of Republicans in polls joins Hillary Clinton and me agreeing that that decision ought to be reversed.
You know what, Brent? Here's the problem that I see, and I'm curious what your take is on this. Yes, she did take the position. I liked it too. In fact, when you look at polls, 70% of Americans seem to like the idea of getting all of this money, especially undisclosed money, out of politics. But then in the same breath, or in the same week, or on the same day, Mrs. Clinton's campaign announced that she's going for $2.8 billion in campaign funds. How do you, on the one hand, complain about too much money in politics at the same time you're saying, but we intend to raise $2.8 billion? Well,
that definitely calls for a cigar.
It does indeed.
No, actually, she didn't announce it. Some of the media announced it for her. But the bottom line, the answer to that question is they've all got to play by the rules in effect at the time of the campaign. And as long as the rules allow it, and the Republicans are going to do it, and the Koch brothers and the conservatives are going to do it, Hillary Clinton is going to do it, and the liberal versions of the Koch brothers are going to do it, that's the world that she will campaign in, because that's the only world that we have. The difference between the parties is she will take the money and try to change the system. The Republicans will take the money and try to keep the system.
So let's expand on that a little bit. Today there were a lot of stories running suggesting that all of the quote good people, or the experienced people who work behind the scenes in political campaigns, they're all running away from the candidates and running towards the candidates' super PACs. Why? Candidates can only raise up to $2,700 when it comes to campaign contributions, while these super PACs can raise millions at one go. The problem being, of course, that the super PACs can't legally communicate with the candidates. So now what you see are some of the top advisors going to the super PACs, so there's good judgment there. Is this going to be an even bigger problem in politics, where a Mike Murphy, who's close to Governor Bush, can't work for Governor Bush? Instead, he's going to go run the super PAC.
Well, look, let's keep this between us, because I'm going to get in trouble if word gets out. The whole system is completely corrupt. I include many Democrats as well as Republicans in the corruption. And I'll go a step further. I mean, I've known many, if not most of the people that you read on the front pages from the last 20, 30 years, including today. And I'll tell you, the political community, political reporters and political consultants, now keep this our secret, are some of the most boring darn people you'll ever meet in your life. On occasion, you can talk about baseball, but don't try to talk about Ernest Hemingway or Mozart or the Beatles or Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
All they care about is money, and all they care about is polling and data and how they can manipulate the voters, and they will follow the money. And it's Democrats as much as Republicans. I had said I don't find it very inspiring that the armada of consultants that worked for Barack Obama are parading in mass.
So Brent, I'm
Clinton.
going to cut you short. I'm going to cut you short because we're going short. The good news is you're staying with us, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, more with Brent Budowsky when we return. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Steve Malzberg Show. And we're back on the Malzberg Show. We've been talking in our last segment with one of my favorite writers over at The Hill, Brent Budowsky, who has kindly agreed to stick with us for another segment because there's something more I want to get into. Brent Budowsky, one-time aide to Senator Lloyd Bentsen of Texas and currently writer for The Hill. Brent, thanks for hanging with us.
Sure.
So look, you have another piece. You two have been busy this week. You, on the one hand, you congratulated Hillary Clinton for what you believe was a bold and important statement on taking some of the money out of politics. I completely agree with you, by the way. But then you wrote another piece where you issued a warning to Hillary Clinton. What are you warning her about?
Well, I hope the folks that watch the show and have seen me know that while I am a liberal, I am a Democrat, I try to be honest. I was calling her and warning her to be careful about being conservative, cautious, careful, calculating, and get herself so tied in knots that she's afraid to open herself up to people and to speak honestly and openly. When I saw a story on CNN that talked about the new Hillary before she announced, I was inspired to write the column and say, America doesn't want a new Hillary or a new Jeb or a new Chris Christie or a new anybody. That's like the old new Nixons we used to have when I was a little kid. They want to know the real Hillary, just like they want to know the real Jeb and the real candidates. They don't want the public relations, the spin, the consultant talk, the focus groups, the polls, which is why most people think politicians sound the same, even when they totally disagree. They're all trying to be everything to everybody, and I warn Hillary Clinton, don't fall into that trap. You can have too many consultants and not enough authenticity, and that's not a good way to campaign. That was my warning.
I think that's really good advice. I got to tell you, what concerns me, Brent, I don't know how you felt about the first week of the campaign. I got myself into some hot water with our friends on the liberal side by being very critical of it, because what I saw was an incredibly contrived first week of the Clinton campaign. And as I've said, all campaigns are contrived. The trick is to contrive them to not look contrived. And I don't think she pulled that off. She has meetings with people, excuse me, who were supposed to be extemporaneous, drop in at the restaurant meetings, and then we find out that that person was vetted. I don't know why her campaign imagines in this day and age that we're not going to find out everything. She goes to a meeting over at the community college, terrific, but when she does so, the van drives past all of these senior citizens who showed up on their own and were waiting on the lawn just to get a look at her. She passed them right by. Don't you have some fear that the campaign may not be allowing Hillary to be Hillary?
Oh, yeah, I have a lot of fear of that. And that was part of my warning. That the politicians nowadays are so consultant-driven, poll-driven, focus group-driven. I mean, what you had, you're right, to some degree, was a spontaneous, honest meeting of pre-selected people to do what they were supposed to do.
Right.
And that is just absurd. You know, the phrase I used in my warning column, trust the people. And I can't tell you how many senators and congressmen and presidential candidates I've talked to recently and for a long time. Trust the people. The people aren't stupid. And I'll tell you, one of the great truths in American politics, the few people I haven't gotten angry yet, I'm going to get angry now. People talked about Jonathan Gruber, who basically said that people are stupid.
Right.
The great truth in American politics is most consultants in both parties think voters are stupid. Too many of the candidates act as though voters are stupid. Voters aren't stupid. And if you trust them and speak to voters honestly and authentically, even if they disagree with what a candidate says, They will respect that candidate and like that candidate for being honest with them. And there's not enough of that in politics. So I agree. Jeb Bush has the same problem. Most of the candidates in both parties have the same problem. Trust the people and be yourself, and stop trying to con them with pseudo-authenticity, no matter which party.
I got to tell you, though, in reviewing how the candidates behaved during that first week, you know, it's frankly unlikely that I'll be voting for Jeb Bush, but I thought he came across as far more genuine than Hillary Clinton did, and that can't be a good thing for the Clinton campaign. I take your point completely about how both sides think that voters are stupid, and you and I agree, voters are anything but stupid. But how stupid can they be if they think that they can arrange things like this and we're not going to find out? We find out everything today, and we find it out instantly.
Well, the problem we have, and I've written about this several months ago with Hillary, but it's true of all of them, it's the Stockholm Syndrome, that politicians, again, both parties, liberals and conservatives, they live in a narrow, cloistered world where all they're talking to are consultants, pollsters, and rich folks. And the common denominator of a lot of them is they think most people are dumb. They really do. They think it's all a con, it's all an act.
And the people know that they think that, and that's why they don't like politicians. Brent, we got to move on. Thanks so much, writer over at The Hill, Brent Budowsky. Brent, come back soon. I love talking to you, man.
And best wishes to Steve, wherever you are.
I'll make sure to pass it along. Coming up next, you're going to want to stay tuned. Managing editor of the UVA Center for Politics, Kyle Kondik, joins us with a fascinating study on the Democratic future of the campaign.